Very good afternoon, everyone. I am Tanya Sharma. I'll be teaching you the syllabus of economics in this series. So, I welcome you all in this series of economics for SEBI Grade A. First, let's try to understand what economics is. Okay, before starting with the subject of economics, can anyone tell me, before starting, tell me audio video is clear? Good afternoon. No, we'll not be solving MCQs today. We'll be doing introductory economics today. Okay, introduction to economics. We'll try to understand economics and its subject matter today. All right, I'll give you an introduction. Audio video is clear. All right, thank you so much. Okay, so first tell me, how many of you, be it any examination, how many of you are afraid of this subject called economics? Tell me. Anyone who is afraid of economics? There might be some students, because I have met many students, many aspirants. Yes, no. All right, if you are no, if your answer is no, you're not afraid of economics, then congratulations. But even if you are afraid of economics, then also congratulations, because now you won't be able, now economics won't be able to haunt you. Why? Because you know, when does a subject haunts an aspirant? When the aspirant is not able to grasp or to comprehend the subject properly, right? So in our entire series of economics, I'll always focus on the conceptual and the application based portion of economics. I'll also request you all that whenever you study economics for any examination, just try to understand all the basics, all the concepts, and then link all the concepts with the application. Why? Because you must have seen in the recent years, be it UPSC, be it SEBI, be it RBI, be it any examination, the application portion is being asked by the examiners. They are not requiring candidates who are mugging up the content. So our focus would not be on mugging up the content or mugging up the facts or mugging up the definitions. We'll try to understand the concepts, right? So let's first start with economics as a subject. Now, what do you think economics is? When I say economics, many of you must be thinking of money, right? Many of you must be thinking of wealth, because yes, the subject deals with wealth, the subject deals with money, with creation of money, with circulation of money. But you know, the root cause of existence of economics is not money. Yes, it might sound different, but the cause of existence of economics is not money. The cause of existence of economics is a scarcity or dearth of something, dearth of the resources which are available on this earth. Had there been no scarcity of resources, there would not have been any subject called economics, right? So first, let's try to understand what economics is. Economics is basically a subject which tries to understand the behavior of different stakeholders. Now, when I say stakeholders, what do I mean is, I mean the consumer, I mean the producer, the investor, the households, the government, because government is also a consumer, government is also a producer, and government is also an investor. Depends upon the role which the government plays in the economy. Now, why do I say that economics is a subject which tries to study the behavior of all these stakeholders? Why are we dealing with the behavior of something? Why aren't we dealing it under the subject called psychology? Because you know, without understanding why consumer behaves in a certain way, why producer behaves in a certain way, we'll not be able to formulate any policy for any kind of a nation and its growth and development, right? So economics is a study which studies the economic behavior, of human beings or different entities in the market, right? Like consumer, producer, investor, households. Now, for example, we all are consumers, right? We all are consumers. Is the screen clear or is it getting blurred? Can you tell me? Is the content clearly visible to all of you? Anyone? Clear? All right, very good. So when I say consumer, we all are consumer. Every living being on this earth is a consumer. We are consuming one thing or the other, right? It varies, but we are consuming something as soon as we arrive on this earth, on this planet, right? So now when we try to understand the consumer behavior, which is a subject matter of microeconomics, then we are able to devise policies, then we are able to understand, okay, this is how market works, this is what is called demand, this is what is called supply, right? You must have heard two names in economics. अगर कुछ और नहीं भी पढ़ा है हमने तो दो चीजें जरूर पढ़ी है, demand and supply, right? There are two market forces in economics, demand and supply. So we try to understand consumer behavior, then we try to understand producer behavior. There is a huge difference between how a consumer thinks and a producer thinks. A consumer's motive is less price and more satisfaction. On the other hand, a producer's motive is more price, more selling of the products or services, and more profit, or basically profit maximization, right? Then we have investors. Who are the investors? Who invest their money in something for return, in expectation of a return, which is called profit, right? Now investor sentiment is also very important, and investment nowadays, the trend of investment is important for every kind of examination. Why? Because you must have seen in government policies and in the recent budget speeches by Honorable Finance Minister that they have been focusing on bringing more and more investment from outside India, also boosting up the domestic investment as well as attracting the foreign investment, which has FDI, FII, FPI, which we'll be dealing with in the later course of time, right? So we need to understand how an investor behaves. For example, there are two countries, country A and country B. If I give you a situation, for example, in country A, there are huge, laws or tax laws before an investor wants to invest in something or establish his or her business, and it is very strict and it is very difficult to start a new business in country A, so it would become difficult for the investor to invest in a country A. On the other hand, in the country B, there are easy laws, easy tax laws, easy labor laws, right? And the laws are somewhat favorable to the investor. So my question to you is, in which country do you think there will be more investment? Say country A or country B? Tell me your answers. Country A or country B? This is how you understand the behavior of someone, the behavior of an entity in the economy. Where would you expect more investments, in country A or in country B? Any idea? No? All right. Okay. I'll be waiting for your answers. Right. So economics in this way tries to understand the behavior of different entities, or you can understand it in this way as well, that economics is the theory of how to maximize the use of scarce resources. How to maximize the use of scarce resources. Now this is very important. Scarce resources. Resources are there. We are not dealing with the problem of utilizing resources. No, we are dealing with the problem of how to maximize our satisfaction, to maximize our needs with the limited availability of resources. So there is scarcity of resources. Note this point here. Okay, I'll come to it later on. Scarcity of resources, right? So economics is the theory of how to maximize the use of scarce resources with the present state of technology. This is something also which matters a lot in the course of development of any economy, to fulfill the unlimited human desires and needs. So all your questions to what economics is and why do we study economics and what is the subject matter of economics lies the answer lies here in this definition. First is scarcity of resources, second is state of technology. There are some economies where state of technology is not so developed, so they are not so developed, right? On the other hand, the developed nations have state of the art technology, so they are able to efficiently use their resources, which are also scarce to them, which are also available in a limited quantity to them, but they are able to use it more efficiently. This is what makes the difference between countries, between developing countries, between developed countries, between least developed countries, and many more categories, right? Are you getting my point? Is this definition of economics clear to everyone? Yes or no? Everyone? Okay. Now let's try to understand the difference between economics and economy. There is a difference between economics and economy. Economics is the subject, right, in which we try to understand the theories, the assumptions. Economy is the application of economics. Now, where do we apply these theories? We apply it in a country where we have the consumers, we have the households, we have the producers, right? We have different entities. For example, in India, there is Indian economy. Okay, so economics is a subject. All the concepts, all the theories of economics applied in India gives result of Indian economy, right? Gives birth to Indian economy. So economy is basically a system. It is a closely intertwined system of different stakeholders where every stakeholder reacts or interacts with each other. Okay, it is a give and take relationship. For example, we are consumer, we demand something, so producer produces it and then sells it to us. So if there is producer, then we have consumer. If there is consumer, then only we have producer. So they both are, and similarly all these stakeholders are very closely related to everyone. So economy is that system. Economy is the application of economic concepts which we learn. Okay, so economy is when the principles of economics and the choices or problems like what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce are put into practice. It creates a system called economy. Now remember, I'll come to these concepts again in the next slides. What to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. These are called as the three central problems of any economy. As we all are aware about the difference between development status of every country. For example, least developed country, developing country, developed country, right? There are many choices, there are many problems which are different and which are indigenous to each and every nation. But there is something which is common to each and every economy on this earth, which is called the central problem of an economy. I'll be coming to this concept later. Okay, so economy is a very closely intertwined complex system which uses the theories of economics to achieve higher growth rates and then distribute the proceeds of national income among various stakeholders. Now, why do we have economy? Because economy is the system which puts into use all these theories, all these concepts. What are the motives behind this? The motive is simple: higher economic growth rate, higher GDP. Okay, so whenever I say GDP, that means national income, because they are synonymous to each other, although we have different methods of calculating GDP, national income, and different aggregates related to national income, which we will be doing in the chapter of national income later, right? So when I say national income, I mean GDP. And when I say higher economic growth, then also I mean GDP, because GDP is what? Economic growth, right? So economy is a system which wants to further this economic growth and then distribute the proceeds of national income. This is very important, because only producing is not sufficient. You all know very well that India's almost 99% wealth lies with 1% of the population. There is a huge concentration of wealth in economies like India. There is huge inequality. Okay, so we also want to equally distribute all the proceeds, all the gains from such production, so that every section of the society can capitalize upon these opportunities, right? And we want to distribute all these proceeds in such a manner that it is not only economic growth, it becomes inclusive growth. Now when I say inclusive growth, I mean that almost each and every strata of the society, the remotest part of the economy, is also getting benefited from the higher economic growth. Okay, this is the difference between economics and economy. I hope it is clear to everyone. Any doubts so far? Right. Okay. Now, this is very interesting. If I ask you, if you are able to understand this one particular word, economics will be very easy for you. If I ask you, why do we have economics as a subject on this earth? Okay. Why do we have economics? Right. So, the answer lies in this. We have something called scarcity. We have something called scarcity. So the question is, can we define the origin and existence of economics in one word? Yes, of course. And the answer is scarcity. Scarcity means limited availability of something, right? So on this planet, as you all are aware, the natural resources are very limitedly available, and some countries are have huge reserves of minerals. For example, India. In India as well, we have Chota Nagpur belt and all. So Deccan Plateau, which is rich in minerals, which is rich in resources, but there are some countries which do not have enough resources, right? So there's unequal distribution of resources as well as limited availability of resources. So can we define the origin and existence of economics in one word? Yes, and that word would be scarcity, right? So economics is all about scarcity. Economics is all about scarcity or dearth of the resources. There is a scarcity of resources, and therefore there is subject called economics. Okay, had there been no dearth of resources, as I have discussed it earlier with you, that had there been no dearth of resources, there would not have been a subject called economics, right? Because everyone would have had unlimited access to all kind of resources. Then why are we pondering about efficient use of such resources? Right? If we have unlimited resources, why would we give our energy, our thoughts, our time, our money for efficient use, for devising policies which can use limited resources to maximize the unlimited needs? Also, there is a mismatch between these two. Resources are available in limited quantity, and needs and desires are unlimited, right? We want to purchase land on the moon as well. Okay, so our desires have no limits, but our resources have. So there is one word called scarcity, due to which we can say that economics is there, and all the problems which economics deals with have their origin directly or indirectly linked to the scarcity of resources. Got this point? All right. There are certain definitions which you can refer to given by famous economists. First is Adam Smith. As you all know, Adam Smith is also known as the father of economics, right? So Adam Smith says that economics is the science of wealth, right? So there is a very simple definition given by Adam Smith, that according to him, economics is not so complex. Economics is what? Economics is the science of wealth. It deals with wealth. It has problems related to wealth. It has queries related to wealth, how to produce, what to produce, for whom to produce, in sense of wealth, right? So Adam Smith considers economics as the science of wealth. You must be aware about this book, The Wealth of Nation. Is a very thick book, I think this much almost, and this is a very famous treatise written by the father of economics, Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations. It can be asked as a one-liner question in any examination. Wealth of Nations is authored by Adam Smith. Then we have another famous American economist, Paul A. Samuelson. According to Paul Samuelson, economics is the study of how men and society choose, with or without the use of money, to employ scarce productive resources which could have alternative uses. Now, as I said to you earlier, that every answer related to what economics is, what economics does, what economics deals with, lies in this one word, scarcity, right? You can witness here that according to Paul A. Samuelson as well, economics is a study of how man chooses to employ the hard-earned money between alternate options which she or he has, because we have scarce productive resources. We cannot buy everything. Everything is not available to us and not affordable. Why? Because it is limitedly available, right? Which could have alternative uses to produce various commodities over time and distribute them for consumption now and in future among various people and groups of society. So this is also again the definition which says that economics deals with the production, with the distribution of the scarce resources, right? Next is Alfred Marshall, again a very famous English economist. According to Alfred Marshall, economics is the study of mankind in ordinary business of life, which examines that part of individual and social action which is connected with attainment and with the use of material requisites of well-being. Again, he also focuses upon the material well-being, material aspect of the human welfare, right? So according to him, economics is something which deals with maximization of material well-being of an individual, okay, be it consumer, be it producer. All right, are these definitions clear to everyone? Are you catching up with me? Yes or no? This is very simple, okay? So I'll always try to focus on the understanding portion of the economics, right? We'll not mug up. We'll always understand the concepts, and as and when required, we'll always try to do the application practice of it, okay? All right. So moving forward, then we have this very important concept. See, these are such words which we often use interchangeably. Okay, we don't realize it, but we often use desire, we often use demand interchangeably. We do not understand the difference between a desire and demand. There is a fine line, but there is a line, there is a difference. Okay, what is the difference? Being an economics student, you need to understand that every wish is not a demand, because demand is something which comes very frequently when you study economics or even you don't study economics, right? So demand is different from a wish or a desire. Demand and supply are very, very important topics. So first we need to clarify the difference between desire and demand. Now as you can see in this picture, this person wants to buy a car, okay? For example, this boy wants to buy a car, but he does not have enough money, as you can see in the image, right? Hopeless, shocked that only 2 pennies left and that too have fallen down, right? So does not have enough money, but he wishes to buy a car. For example, you wish to buy a BMW, okay, or a Rolls Royce, but you do not have money. So that means you only desire, it's not your demand, okay? It's only a wish. A desire is simply an urge to buy, a simple urge to buy something without the ability to pay for it. It is merely a wish. You only want to buy a BMW, you only want to buy a Rolls Royce, you do not have enough money to pay for it. It is only a wish, it is only a desire. Now when do we say that we have demand for something? When the person who is willing to buy something, a good or a service, is also able to afford it, is also able to buy it. Are you getting my point? Right? If you want to buy, suppose if you have a wish of owning a Rolls Royce, but if you do not have money which you need to buy the Rolls Royce, it's only a wish. It's not a demand, right? So demand is willingness to buy something along with the ability to pay for it. Is that clear? Along with the ability to pay for it. Now, as you can see in this image, this person, whosoever, say person X, has paid this much of money for this car, and then the owner Y has given the keys to him, right? So he was able to pay, so he demanded the car. He purchased the car. So this is demand. Demand is something, demand for a good, demand for a service, which couples the ability of paying for a particular good and service along with the will of buying it. For example, this picture. Then demand is the driver of economic growth. Remember this. In the entire course of time, always remember this. If there is no demand in the economy, gradually the economy will start falling down. Everything lies every economic activity, every production activity, all the incentives lie behind the concept of demand. As you might have witnessed, as we all have witnessed the unfortunate phase of corona period, right? The 2 years related to the pandemic. You must have witnessed, you must have read about the lower demand in various sectors during and after the pandemic, right? So during those 2 years, sometimes after those 2 years, after the pandemic was put to an end, the demand was falling down. Okay? The demand was falling down. So the economy was facing a situation close to recession. Although we were able to, our government, our banks were well equipped to prevent the situation of depression or recession, depression or recession. But we witnessed a slowdown, right? We could not avoid it. So demand is the driver of economic growth. If there is demand, there will be production, there will be growth. Let me explain it to you in this way. This is very, very important. Remember, or always remember, demand is very important for any economy. Everything which is going out there is due to demand. For example, now when I consider an individual person, I say it is demand. When I consider the economy as a whole, I would call it aggregate demand. Aggregate means total demand. All the demand, all the goods, all the services which are demanded in the economy. Aggregate demand. Aggregate demand. Now let's consider that there is a huge demand for, say, product X. Okay, demand is increasing. So if demand of product X is increasing, it gives incentive to the producers of the product X to increase their production. Yes or no? Right? When production will increase, there will be employment. Because if any production activity is going on, you need workers to work over there, right? Okay, so employment increases, there will be employment opportunities. If there is employment, people will have salaries or wages. If there are wages, they'll be able to demand. If there is no income, you will not be able to demand anything, right? So wages increases, so again the demand increases, and the cycle goes on and on. Now, if the opposite happens, that demand is less, so production will be less. If demand for any good is less, so producer will stop producing any further units of that particular product. Why? Because it is not getting sold in the market, right? So production will fall, and as production falls, there would be less requirement of workers. So some workers would be fired out, there will be unemployment, so unemployment will increase. If employment reduces, then wages reduce, standard of living reduces of a lot of people in the economy. So when wages reduces, their ability to demand reduces again, and then the cycle goes on and on. So in that cycle, after a long time, we'll witness a recessionary or a slowdown situation in the economy. Okay, so if we want to prevent such situations, we need demand. Okay. We need to have demand. Now that is why I wrote here that demand is the driver of economic growth. It provides the incentive for production and economic activities. Okay, is that clear? Everyone understood? The difference between desire and demand? Every wish, every desire is not a demand. A desire which is coupled along with the ability to pay for the desire is a demand. Okay, right? Now subject matter of economics. moving on to the subject matter of economics. If you see, the subject matter of economics has a lot of themes. Broadly, we can classify into 7 broad themes, right? The first thing is production. First thing is production. Now, what is production? You must have heard the term production. What is production? Production is basically a process of value addition. Production is basically a process of value addition. Now, why do I say this? Value addition? Because what production is, it is a process where we change the raw material or the intermediate goods into final goods, right? There is a difference between intermediate goods and final goods. What is the difference? Intermediate goods, remember these terminologies as well, okay? They are sometimes asked in the examinations. When I say final good, I mean that good is available for the end use by the consumer. Now, when you classify certain goods into intermediate or final goods, how do you classify that? That would depend upon the end use of the product. For example, let me discuss with you an example of wheat. Okay. For example, there is wheat grown in the field. Okay. Now, we do not consume wheat directly in the form of grains or seeds, right? We convert it into flour. Okay. So, we send the 1 quintal of wheat, for example, to a flour mill. The flour mill converts the seeds or the wheat into flour. Now, if you purchase the flour for your household consumption purposes, for example, making rotis only, so that would be your final good, because the consumption is near, okay? Your purpose is to consume the wheat, you just want to prepare a roti out of it, okay? So, it is a final good. But the same product, for example, the flour, the wheat flour is sent or is purchased, it is sold to a bakery, for example, right? It is purchased by a bakery. That would not be a final good. Why? Because the bakery is not purchasing the wheat flour to consume it. The bakery is purchasing the wheat flour to convert it into, say, breads, into, say, biscuits, right? Into cakes, okay? So, the classification of an intermediate good and a final good lies in its end use, okay? As far as you are adding to any product, it is intermediate, and when the process of addition, value addition, this is why I termed it as a process of value addition, although I did not term it as value addition, it is always known as value addition. I wrote it here that it is a process of value addition because you are adding value to it. If flour is converted into biscuit, value is added, okay? Biscuit is sold at a higher price than flour, okay? If flour is converted into bread, it is value addition to it. Why? Because bread has more value in terms of money than the flour. Are you getting my point? Right? Is it clear? So, that's why sometimes production, the process of production is also called as value addition. It is nothing but a process of value addition, okay? Then in the entire process of production, there are some essential factors. This is also very important. You can note it down. These can be asked in the examinations. There are broadly 4 factors of production which are required in production of any kind of a good, any kind of a service. These are the common and the broad factors of production. There are four factors of production which should be on your fingertips, okay? First, land, second, labor, then capital, and then entrepreneurship. Now, for any production activity, first of all, you need a land, okay, to start setting up the infrastructure. So, land, first is land. These are known as factors of production. Factors of production means there are some essential factors or essential things which are required for production of any goods or services, right? So, first thing which we require obviously is land. Land is very primary, right? Now, what land earns is rent. So, the income of land or the earning of land is rent. Always remember this, and this is called factor income. This is called factor income. Factor income, okay? So, land gives you rent. For example, if you have land and you have some structure above it, be a building, a room, a mall, anything, and you give it to something to on lease or on rent, so you earn rent, right? So land earns rent. So the factor income of land is rent. Labor earns wages. Labor earns wages. Wages means salary. Now there is a fancy term called compensation of employees. Compensation of employees. You can jot down this term. This is a very fancy term, and you must know that nowadays, in recent years, the examiners of different exams are very, keen to ask such interesting terminologies in the examination, right? So if they write compensation of employees in place of wages, you do not need to get confused, okay? Compensation of employees is nothing but the salary or the wages. So labor earns what? Labor earns wages. Then capital. What is capital? Does anyone know what is capital? I am not asking about the political capital or the capital of India, okay? In economics or in finance, whenever I say capital, this is a very commonly used term. So what is capital? Any idea? Capital is anything, be it money in the form of money or be it in any other form. Money to run business, yes, very good. Very good. So it can be money, it can be a particular product, it can be a particular person as well. A person can be an asset or capital to you. Capital is anything, remember, anything which helps you in furthering or in increasing your economic activities or generating wealth. Anything which helps you in generating wealth, in developing your economic empire, in developing your economic activities, your production activities is capital. Okay, so if you invest money in something or some economic activities, say a factory, an industry where something is being produced, it is capital. Okay, capital earns interest. The factor income of capital is interest. Okay, then we have entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship? You must be watching Shark Tank India, right? Everyone must be watching Shark Tank. Okay, so they all are entrepreneurs. Okay, they all are entrepreneurs. On the top of all these factors, what we need is something, yes, an organization, or to be very precise, someone who manages all these other factors of production. So what does an entrepreneur earn? Risk-taking venture? Yes. In investment, there is always a risk. Okay, so investment cannot come without risk, right? Entrepreneurship gives you profit. An entrepreneur earns profit. So remember these 4 factors of production on your fingertips and remember their factor incomes: land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, and their income: rent, wages, interest and profit respectively. Is that clear? Now let me tell you a very important difference which again can be asked. A very, very important difference. Between factor income and transfer income. Does anyone has any idea what is the difference between factor income and transfer income? Okay, let me give you a question. Suppose you are doing a job somewhere or you have a business which you own, okay? You are earning some income out of that economic activity, whether through a job, whether through a business or any economic activity, right? That is your factor income. That is called as your factor income. Y stands for income here, okay? And suppose you receive a gift from someone, okay? Your friend gifts you something, okay? Or you get some money from your elder ones in the family when you visit their home, right? Your nani's house, your dadi's house, yes or no? Right? On Diwali, on Holi. So that is transfer income. Any income for which or against which you have not generated any economic activity is a transfer income. Is a transfer income. Is a transfer income. And every income which is earned after some economic activity or doing some production activities is a factor income. Production can be of goods as well as services. Also, remember in economics, whenever I say goods, that also means services. Okay, there is production of goods and there is production of service. For example, I am teaching you, it is a production of a service, which is teaching, right? Is that clear? And remember, in national income accounting, when we'll do it later in national income chapter, in the calculation of national income or in the calculation of GDP, only and only factor income is taken into consideration. No donations, no gifts, or basically no transfer income is taken into consideration during any calculation or calculation of any aggregate related to national income or GDP. Okay, so what we are concerned about is factor income. We are not concerned about the transfer income or the income which you get for free. Is that clear? All right, moving ahead. Then factors of production हो गया. Next हम देखते हैं technique and technology. Technique क्या होता है? Technique is basically how do you employ your resources for any production activity. For example, there are certain industries which use labor more than the capital or machinery. There are some industries or some economies which use more machinery than the labor, whichever is cheaper and easily available. For example, India. In India, we have huge population. As you all know that we have surpassed China in population growth, right? So in India, the labor is cheaply available. So it is easy and feasible, economically viable for us or for our industries and entrepreneurs to employ more of labor than the capital, which is expensive, right? So then the second concept is technique. Then we have exchange. Exchange of what? Exchange of the goods and services. When I say exchange, I mean market. Why do I say that? Because market is what? Market is not a place, okay? Market is not a place where you go and you buy things. Market is the mechanism of exchange between someone who wants to sell and the other person who wants to buy. Are you getting my point? Okay. So there is exchange. Earlier, when there used to be a barter system of exchange or C2C economy, which is commodity to commodity economy, before we adopted the free market system, which is now present almost in every part of the world, there used to be exchange of commodities. For example, for 1 quintal of wheat, one buffalo would be exchanged. Right? Funny, but I know this is not rational, not scientific, not quantifiable. How do you measure 1 quintal of wheat and 1 buffalo, value of 1 buffalo and 1 quintal of wheat, right? So that used to be an exchange system under barter system. But now since we have market system or free market economies, the exchange, how do we exchange? In terms of money or something which we call as currency. Okay, currency or money. Money is what? Money is a medium of exchange. So we have a mechanism of exchange which we deal with in the economy. Market is what? Market is the mechanism which facilitates these kind of exchanges. All right. Then we have distribution. We have done production, we have exchanged it. Now we also want to distribute it in such a manner that it ensures inclusive growth in the economy, that it reduces the concentration of wealth. Okay, production and the incomes earned from the production should be well distributed to all factors of production. All the rents, wages, interests and profits should be scientifically, empirically distributed so that we reduce the inequality. Okay. Now, then next is value or utility. What is utility or value in economics? See, value or utility is something, a term which is used to show how much the consumption of a particular good has, how much amount of satisfaction the consumption of a particular good has given to you, okay, or to the consumer. So it is also called as utility in pure economic terminologies. It is the capacity of satisfying the want of a consumer. It is also called utility, which is further divided into two concepts. So utility is a very important topic under economics. Utility is what? Utility is basically the want satisfying capacity of a product. For example, when you are very hungry and you start eating food, you know, it gives you a lot of satisfaction. Yes or no? Right? But as you are about to complete the food, yes, as you are about to complete your food, the satisfaction reduces. reduces. So this is utility, and there is a law called law of diminishing marginal utility, which we'll do later. So utility means that the satisfaction level of consuming a good or a service, satisfaction level of consuming a good or service is utility. Now there are two approaches, cardinal or ordinal approach. There is a debate between economists, can utility be measured or cannot, or it cannot be measured. So the proponents of cardinal utility, they favor it that utility is something which can be quantified or which can be measured, right? So it explains that the satisfaction level after consuming a good or service can be scaled in terms of countable numbers. So there are two categories, cardinal utility and ordinal utility. Cardinal utility says that utility can be measured, right? According to them, the satisfaction which you get from eating a roti when you are when what we call it as a niwala, okay? So when you take that first niwala when you are hungry, it gives you satisfaction that can be measured according to cardinal utility proponents. And according to the proponents of ordinal utility, it cannot be measured. It can only be ranked that okay, this is something which gives me more satisfaction and this is something which gives me less of satisfaction, okay? All right, ठीक है? So ordinal utility explains satisfaction after consuming good or service cannot be scaled in numbers, although you can give them preferences that okay, this is something which gives me more satisfaction and this is something which gives me less satisfaction. Okay, example, there is a person Sam, he says that pizza gives him 60 utils of satisfaction. Now can you say that eating one plate of rice gives you this much amount of satisfaction? Yes or no? Okay, notification update भी हम लोग करेंगे discuss. अभी please do not send these messages. We'll discuss about the notification. First tell me that can you measure the satisfaction from eating one bowl of dal and rice in terms of utils, that I get 100 utils satisfaction out of it? No, right? So practically what I think ordinal utility is more practical, okay? Although you can rank that okay, this food gives me more satisfaction and this food gives me less satisfaction, and utility is measured in a term called utils, and in ordinal utility, in the concept of ordinal utility, utility is ranked on the basis of satisfaction. It is, of course, it is less practical and it is more practical. There are certain proponents. For example, for cardinal utility we have Professor Marshall, and for ordinal utility we have economists like J.R. Hicks, and then we have R.G.D. Allen. So remember these. Professor Marshall is a proponent of cardinal utility, while Professor Hicks and R.G.D. Allen is a proponent of ordinal utility. Okay, so this is what we called as utility analysis, and there are two kinds of utility. Yes, we can give ordinal utility, right? You can rank your satisfaction. I get this much satisfaction from this and that much from that. Okay. All right. Then we have price, which is again very important concept. If we produce something, we need to give it a tag, we need to give it a price. Okay, who decides the price? The market decides the price. We do not decide the price. Okay, and in the market, who decides the price? The two forces of demand and supply. Again, that's why I started with the concept of demand only at the very first time. Okay, so price. What is price? Price of a commodity is the amount of money which you are able and you are willing to pay for buying 1 unit of that product. So price is nothing but the exchange value in terms of money for a product, right? Now here's a note. Remember this, there is a difference between demand and quantity demanded. What is the difference? Demand is your willingness and your ability to demand something or to buy something. But when you are provided with a particular price of a good, and on the basis of a price you decide how much quantity you want to consume or demand, that is called quantity demanded. Okay, that is called quantity demanded. It refers to a particular quantity which a consumer is ready to buy at a given price. For example, if I offer you that, for 100 rupees I'll give you 2 apples. Okay. Now, second situation, I offer you that for 200 rupees I'll give you 2 apples. Okay. So, your quantity demanded will fall down. Why would you purchase 2 apples for 200 rupees? Right. So, when I give you a particular price and a particular quantity, that is called as a quantity demanded. The price and the quantity which coincide, or that particular quantity which you are willing and able to buy at a given price, the price which is given to you by the market, is called as quantity demanded. Is that clear? Then we have another important theme of economics, which is consumption. Of course, everything is there due to consumption. If we do not consume, if we do not demand, there will be no production activities. Okay, what is consumption? Consumption is what? An act of using a good or service to satisfy our own needs, our own desires, right? Consumption can be defined as final purchase of goods and services by an individual. Now also remember this, as I told you, the difference between intermediate goods and the final goods. That intermediate goods are something which are in the process of value addition. Value addition means production, and final goods are something which have come out of the process of value addition or production, right? So consumption is an expenditure when you spend something on something to buy the product or service to consume, not to invest. Remember this. Okay, but when you buy something to invest it, for example, if I buy an air conditioner, okay, for my own comfort, for my own room, it is consumption. It is a consumption expenditure done by me. But if I buy an air conditioner for my office, so it is not consumption, it is investment, right? It is an investment expenditure. So whether your expenditure on whichever thing you spend is consumption expenditure or investment expenditure, it depends on the nature of its use. Okay, if it is being used for your own consumption, your own satisfaction, then it would be consumption. And if you are using something for generating wealth, for furthering your economic activities, for increasing your production activities, it is investment. All right. Here again the same thing which I explained to you right now, that whether an expenditure is a consumption expenditure or investment expenditure depends upon the purpose of buying a particular product or service. Same example is written over here, the AC air conditioner example which I gave you. Okay. Okay. Moving ahead, broadly there are 2 branches of economics. In economics, we have something called microeconomics and we have something called macroeconomics. Okay. So every subject matter of economics is broadly divided into these 2 broad branches. Okay. First is microeconomics, second is macroeconomics. Now what is microeconomics? Microeconomics is something which deals with all the concepts and theories at the individual level. What is individual level? Individual level means individual person, individual consumer, individual producer, individual investor. Okay. For your convenience, I would say that you can remember through this I. There is I in microeconomics. So through this I you can remember individual. Okay. So microeconomics deals with all the theories, concepts and behavior of an individual. Like how does a consumer reacts to an increase in the price of a commodity? How does a producer reacts to increase or decrease in the price of a commodity? Right. So individual behavior is dealt with by the branch called microeconomics. So the word microeconomics is derived from a Greek word micros, which means very small. Okay, very small entity. So we have a huge entity called economy, or a country, a nation, right? And we have an individual, one consumer, one producer, one firm. Okay, so when we try to understand the individual firm, and a lot of firms make an industry, so when we try to understand the individual behaviors, we are talking about microeconomics. Also, I gave you a catch that it's not something to be confused about. Okay, you have this I in this spelling, you can remember it stands for individual, just to remember. Okay, there is nothing like a full form of microeconomics. So economic issues at an individual level, it deals with the economic issues at an individual level. For example, how a consumer, producer, firm reacts to something. Okay, then if we talk about father of microeconomics, so Adam Smith is also known as father of microeconomics. So father of economics as well as father of microeconomics is Adam Smith. Okay, then there is famous economist K.E. Boulding. According to him, microeconomics is the study of particular firm, particular household, individual prices, wages, income, etc. Okay. Now, can you tell me what is that fancy word for wages which I told you earlier in the slides? A fancy word for wages which can also be asked in your examinations, in different examinations. Sometimes it has been asked. Okay. So, what is that fancy word for wages or salary? Tell me first. Compensation? What compensation? Compensation of employees. Okay, compensation of employees. Alright, very good. So, there are certain examples. For example, theory of consumer behavior. How does a consumer behaves? This is very simple. See, in economics, whenever you are confused about something, just bring yourself into that place. For example, if you do not remember law of demand, consider that you are in the picture. Now again consider the answer of your question. For example, if the question is, if price increases, the demand for that particular good or service would fall or not, for example. Okay. So now consider, if you are in the market, you want to buy something or a particular product and you find it very expensive. So your demand will increase or decrease? It will decrease, right? You will find for alternatives which are cheaper, which are in your range, which you can afford. Okay. So economics is very practical. Whenever you are confused about something, just try to understand कि आप अगर उस place पे होते तो आपका decision क्या होता, right? It would give you an answer. Okay. So theory of consumer behavior, price mechanism, theory of price, individual income and employees. Price mechanism. Price mechanism means how does price of a commodity is decided, which is decided by the forces of demand and supply in the market, where the demand of a product or service and the supply of a product or service meets, that becomes the price of the commodity. Okay. Microeconomics has certain significance that unless you understand the behavior of individual entities, you will not be able to devise policies for the nations, right? So it helps the government to devise the policies and helps the investors, helps the producers to devise the prices, the products accordingly. Okay. Then we have the scope of microeconomics. We have scope of microeconomics. This is the branch of economics which mainly deals with the mechanism of price and determination, and the problem or the central problems of the economy. Now, as I told you, as I discussed with you earlier, that any economy has three broad central problems: what to produce, for whom to produce, and how to produce. Okay, because you know we have scarcity of resources. So the first question which comes to our mind, be it a developed economy or developing economy, what to produce, which kind of a good to produce, a consumer good or a capital good, something which is consumed needs to be produced, or those things which are used in production activity needs to be produced, right? So this question needs to be addressed. Then how to produce, what kind of technology should one apply while producing the goods and services. For example, in United States of America, the production mostly would be capital intensive because they have less labor and expensive labor, right? And they are good in some technologies. Okay, they have enough capital. So but in case of India or other developing economies where labor is cheap and easily available, so the technology would be more labor intensive. Are you getting my point, right? So how to produce? Then for whom to produce? How do we distribute the output? Are we targeting only a particular segment of the society, or we are serving the needs of every strata of the economy, right? So we need to address all these kinds of questions, which are called the central problems of any economy. Remember these on your tips as well: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. What to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Okay. So here you can see the scope of microeconomics. It deals with the demand analysis, it deals with the supply analysis, the theory of factor pricing. As I have discussed with you the factors of production, these are the factor incomes. Rent is earned by land, wages are earned by labor, interest is earned by capital, and profit is earned by entrepreneurs. Then we have theory of economic welfare, that there should be efficiency in production. Okay, there should be efficiency in production because we have limited resources. Efficiency in consumption as well. Consumption should not shoot up suddenly. Okay, will not be able to meet the demand and there would be inflation. Then overall economic efficiency. If we are efficient enough to use the resources, then we have a good economic setup. Okay. Then we have something called macroeconomics. Now सी माइक्रो के आई से आप लोगों ने रिमेंबर, मैंने आपको बताया था कि आई से यू कैन रिमेंबर इंडिविजुअल, ए से यू कैन रिमेंबर एग्रीगेट. ए से इन मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स यू कैन रिमेंबर एग्रीगेट. नाउ व्हेन आई से मैक्रो, मैक्रो मीन्स big. The word has been derived from a Greek word macros, which means very huge, large. Okay, so when we understand the behavior of individual consumers and firms and producers, then we apply the theories on the country as a whole. So when we understand the economic phenomena, the monetary phenomena on a nation as a whole, on an economy as a whole, that subject matter comes under the purview of macroeconomics. So macroeconomics studies the economic relationships or problems at the level of the economy as a whole. So it is the big level. It is at the Indian level. We are not talking about an individual consumer of India, rather we are talking about all the consumers of India in macroeconomics. We are talking about the aggregate demand, overall demand in the economy. We are not talking about the demand of a particular person, or we are talking about the aggregate output. We are not talking about the output of a particular firm. Are you getting my point? So this is macroeconomics. All right. Then the word macro, as I have discussed with you, is derived from a Greek word called macros. Now J.M. Keynes is a very important personality. Keynes is known as the father of macroeconomics. Keynes is known as the father of macroeconomics. J.M. Keynes or John Maynard Keynes is the father of macroeconomics. Also, he has always emphasized on the government's intervention. Now remember this, there is a difference between Adam Smith's approach and Keynesian approach. Okay, Adam Smith has always propounded for less government intervention or no government intervention in an economy. According to him, economy works best when it is left into the hands of demand and supply or into the hands of market. But when we talk about Keynes, Keynes has emphasized on government's policy interventions. Yes, policy interventions for the development of an economy. Especially, you know, this theory was given by him after the US has faced a long decade of recession and depression of 1929 and 30s. If you remember, okay, there was a huge depression in United States, and the market was not able to revive out of it. So then it called for the intervention by the government. Okay, it called for the intervention by the government, and then macroeconomics or modern macroeconomics as a subject gained importance, and Keynes' idea of government intervention became famous, right? So he emphasized that we need government intervention to come out of situations like recession and depression. What is recession? When economy sees lower growth rates, and a prolonged recession, later on, continuous recession turns into a depression. We'll discuss it in the business cycle as well. Okay. Then we have significance of macroeconomics. It helps understand the working of an economy, right? Helps in formulating policies, helps in formulating our relations with the rest of the world. Okay. If we have good growth, if we have good GDP numbers, we have employment, we have less poverty, so we'll attract investment as well. Okay. It would make up our international relations as well. Moving on to the next slide, scope of macroeconomics. So it basically deals with the aggregates which serve the interest of the entire economy, which are not serving the interest of one particular individual. Okay. For example, in macroeconomics, we study about employment, we study about national income, savings, investments, inflation, budgeting, balance of payments, foreign exchange, and all these kind of things. Okay, these are individual topics and chapters which I'll take up in later course of time. So theory of output, employment, trade cycle or business cycles, inflation, growth, distribution, consumption, investment, all these things. So macroeconomics deals with all these concepts at the level of economy as a whole or at the level of a nation as a whole. Okay. So this is the introductory class to or introduction to economics. I hope you found it interesting and I hope it was easy for you to comprehend. I would again at the last I would say that when you focus on understanding the concepts and the application of economics, it would become your favorite subject gradually. Okay, and then when you'll read the newspapers, you will not skip the business page. Okay, you will not skip the business page because you will be able to understand what's going on. All right. So yeah, that was it for today's session. Thank you so much and I'll meet you in the next class. Thank you so much. Have a great day.